reached the apex of the college football season. Many of the top teams are going to fall, and only 12 are going to make it to the big stage. Many teams have already had their seasons crumble to dust, and some have begun to chop heads for the shortcomings, such as the fate of Brian Bohannon of Kennesaw State. A 1-8 record and a loss to UTEP in overtime would be damning for any coach. Wait a second, isn't this the first season in the FBS for the Owls? You're not just going to buff up a division and James Madison the entire thing. Bohannon wasn't the first head coach to be canned, and he certainly won't be the last. Let's find out who's all the more closer to doing the same thing. Friday night tank conference. Somehow these two teams don't have losing records. They don't have winning ones either. You can tell by the way they play. With both teams coming off a bye, it's not surprising that at least the offense has been a little more refined than previous. The defenses still suck though, especially the Wakes. The Diarrhea Deacons let Fernando Mendoza put up over 400 yards on them. Watching them trying to cover their receivers is less like watching football, more like a cry for help. Oh yeah, and Cal can now make field goals, from over 50 yards out as an added bonus. Hank Bachmeier was forced to play a game of catch-up the entire night. It was like running to the door that keeps pulling away from you, a lot like Justin Wilcox's buyout. Any faint miracle of Wake trying to overcome the never-ending lead would be undone by a few turnovers in clutch time. But the dead Deacons defense was not the only thing Mendoza wanted to break tonight.
And he dives down near the 15 to the 16. Fernando Mendoza with that big first down.
Mendoza's run was so spectacular, it broke Tank Network's broadcast. The carpet really matches the drapes, doesn't it? Cal made history today as this is their first ACC conference victory. They'll leave Wake Forest with nothing short of putting Dave Clawson's job back on the line. Unlike the TV coverage, it is impossible to pull the plug early. I sense your return to CW Purgatory. Through the Kirk Ferentz era, Iowa fans had grounded expectations of high-tier defenses and offenses that couldn't eat more than shit out of their own asses. This year, though, Iowa broke the chain by producing a high-scoring offense with multiple games of 40 points. But with the Hawkeyes returning to their cursed land, that being the Rose Bowl, they will have to re-establish themselves in the cruel, cruel reality of Iowa football. As low as the old expectations were, though, you've gone far, far below that. Though Brandon Sullivan started out the season strong, he took that piss yellow Iowa has to brand and sprayed it in his pants. Shit really hit the fan once they realized Caleb Johnson was unable to bail them out. UCLA completely shut him down, and by proxy, the entire offense. In the chamber of Iowa's quarterbacks, they've seemed to run out of bullets. Rather than pointing at themselves though, they pulled out a wild card. Wait, is that a fucking linebacker? Yes, you're seeing that correctly. Iowa has gotten so desperate they've gone all the way down to their 4th string quarterback. Only a matter of time until Iowa Elvis is dropping back in the pocket. Speaking of which, the experiment went horribly. 28 passing yards in his total. We missed you, but welcome back, Iowa. UCLA's Ethan Garbers wasn't exactly poised in the pocket either, but the Bruins could run the ball with their vintage uniforms and an actual crowd in attendance? I thought it was illegal to attend games in California. The most alarming red flag for Iowa was the fact that UCLA's defense outperformed theirs by a significant margin. This would all result in the Hawk Tuas spitting on their own grave, giving UCLA their 3rd win in a row. Going from 5 losses in a row to that is peak character development from Deshaun Foster. Did y'all know that this was his first win in the Rose Bowl as head coach? Though Hawkeye fans probably want to stick their pee-pee in a cactus right now, think of the good news, like Caitlin Clark, and the fact Nebraska is one of your remaining games. After the offensive clinic last week, Ohio State and Ryan Day needed a bye week to prepare for the finale of their season with Indiana and Michigan coming up. Phenomenal news. They got their delivery in the form of a barely living carcass of a football team in the Soilermakers. Come on, what'd you expect? It's a $20 million roster versus a potato and a bag of chips. Hudson Card saw the great light every time he stepped out of the pocket. In the rare scenario they'd actually get into the red zone, it would be a 3-and-out followed by the kicker missing it. At least he's following the memo. Not only was Purdue not allowed to win, they weren't allowed to score either. Ohio State had minimal trouble doing whatever they wanted. Will Howard was near perfect in this game. Once his work was done, Julian Sayin and Devin Brown would trade spaces to further disembowel the trains. Jeremiah Smith scored the most receiving touchdowns for a freshman in school history, and the defense just might have ended Ryan Walters' career. Holy Buckeye, just make it stop already!
Stop! He's already dead!
The Buckeyes just simply took a clean old-fashioned Cleveland steamer all over the Soilermakers. Purdue might be the only fan base actually looking forward to seeing Dion on the Aflac commercials. It's the only way to avert their eyes from this train wreck. At this rate, they'll have to get paid by the administration to attend these games. A standard 20 per hour shift might cut it. Sam might be getting more playing time next week as Ohio State travels to Northwestern in what will likely be a familiar result as those purple f***ers needed overtime to beat this dead body. Speaking of which, this is the 8th loss in a row for Purdue. The 4th one by 5 or more touchdowns. If Ryan Walters isn't canned by the end of the week, I'll be convinced that this administration is purposely keeping their football program in the gutter as a good luck charm for basketball season. Hope it's worth it. You're barely over Florida State. Being the last remnant of undefeated teams left in Tank Conference, the cardiac arrest Canes have 3 games left to play for the merit of an undefeated regular season. As they did last year though, the Yellow Jackets are set to end their winning streak for Mario Cristobal. It all starts at the root of the team as Haynes King has returned to the line of battle for the Jackets. As per the norm, Tech would live and die by the run game. With King back, said run game went a lot more fluently for them. It's important to take into account the fact that Miami's defense is a bucket of piss, so this was a minimal endeavor for them to run it down their throats. Once the Canes defense got used to one quarterback, they flipped the script on them and brought out freshman Aaron Philo. Cam Moore did as he always does and plays like an elite talent. While it wasn't his greatest performance, he's the best guy wearing an orange jersey and the guy who's gotten them this far. No matter what he did though, the Jackets always seem to be one step ahead of them. You already know how this goes. It's time for the ACC refs to come and save the day! By throwing flags against Miami? Oh, I see what's going on now. The ACC has chosen SMU as their golden child now. With tank ref ball no longer a bailout option, the Canes will have to rely on the arm of Ward to overcome this lead. Despite what you want to say about ACC officials, the cardiac arrest Canes have always found a way to grab a victory out of the well of defeat. Despite more terrible clock management from Mario Cristobal, clutch ball is what the Canes live and die by.
In from behind, the ball pops out. Georgia Tech's got it. You blew it.
Okay, well, looks like they died this time. Hold on, let me make a call real quick. Hello? Is this the fraud department? Good. Hey, look on the bright side, Miami Nation. Georgia Tech was kind enough this year to teach you how to take a knee. How generous of them. This clinched the belief that everyone already knew about Miami. They are fraudulent. The offense is amazing, but with the defense that's getting torched by 4 or 5 lost teams every week, you may not be championship material. Hell, you may not even be playoff material. You are, however, clown of the week material. So congratulations for that. The Horsies have now solidified themselves at the top of the conference, which is ironic considering that this is their first year. Though you two will probably meet at the end of the season, there is still no way you can convince me that SMU is getting slowed down by this defense. It truly does suck to be you. Georgia Tech lands another huge win for Brent Key and company. Along with the merit that goes to the top 5 victory, you're the first of this week to join the bowling roster.
Alright!
My 9-win prediction for Georgia Tech is still living. For now, at least. If the cardiac arrest Canes continue to go down this route, they might be in for a full-on heart attack. Well, good news. DJ Lagway may not be out for the entire season. Bad news, though, he won't be back immediately. Aiden Warner would have to take over for this matchup in Austin. When I say take over, I mean take over as a placeholder for what we knew was going to be a neutering. Florida fans may be panicking now, but y'all need to chill. Billy Napier just needs more time to get his players in the system. Sure, you let Quinn Ewers put up 5 passing touchdowns and 300 yards on you, but look on the bright side. Your defense only allowed 5 touchdowns, which is the most he's had in a game. Well, I mean, take a look at your offense. 200 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns? Warner is throwing completions to the other team, but hey, that's still more yards than last week. It was still somewhat competitive in the first quarter. Only getting raw dog for 3 quarters is going to show all those recruits that Florida has a great system going under Billy Napier. All he needs is another year, and he'll have these players in preparation to win the national championship. As absolutely ludicrous as this all sounds, this is the thought process of Scott Strickland, who extended Billy Napier for another season. Losing Lagway sucks, but losing him does not give any merit to another year of this. Your recruiting class is as pathetic as the production you put on the field. Beating Kentucky is not worthy of going through all of this. You're not just cooked, you're charred to dust. This entire situation, as hilarious as it is proof that Florida's problems begin at the roots of the administration, and unless those roots are all pulled out, nothing is going to change in the future. But because of your incompetence, you get one more year of Billy Napier. So, thank you for that. The Longhorns control their own destiny ahead of their last 3 games. An old rivalry will be reformed next week against the Piggies, so pending they don't fold against them, the Lone Star Showdown could be for rights in the conference championship. Better hope your team doesn't do like Jonte Cook though and run away. Rutgers is on a full-on downward spiral, on a 4-game losing streak. They need a comeback win desperately. With the 7-5 Merchant coming to town, this could be the day. With the newfound revelation that UCLA is in a bottom feeder, a thawed Krakatoa would remember how to throw a football. The Fool's Gold Gophers, on the other hand, were playing with the enthusiasm of a brick. Blown coverages on defense and an offensive line that was made of baby oil. Darius Taylor, who was strong last week for the squad, was nowhere to be found. While he had some carries, most of them went for Jack Diddley Doodah's squat. The football gods would not allow the ones repping the USA to lose today. The Scarlet Knights would finally get out of their own way and get back into the win column. In the process, they'll chop away at any at-large resumes because everyone besides the top of the Big Ten is beating the hell out of each other. For Minnesota, no antidote of freedom can free you from the clutches of 7-5. You know as well as anyone that that's coming. So congrats for beating Penn State or Wisconsin in advance. Speaking of Penn State, their resume continues to crumble to dust. Wait a minute, wasn't Syracuse just on the CW? Now that's just cruel and unusual punishment. Fran Brown has made a name for himself in being one of the most outspoken coaches in Tank Conference. Making a statement about disrespecting the band seems a little nitpicky, but he's got the spirit. If his team shared mutual feelings, maybe they wouldn't struggle against Boston College. With Thomas Castellanos still playing hurt, Boston College didn't just stay away from the pass, they outright ditched it. Unlike previous encounters though, Bill O'Brien didn't suddenly flip his playbook for no reason. As such, the Eagles thrived. Combine this with the suspect Syracuse run defense and you've reached the status of run the f*** down your opponent's throat. Despite this elite run performance though, Kyle McCord has fully removed the Pittsburgh brand butt plug and has been playing like he has been the first few weeks of the season. While it was a great effort, he spent the entire game chasing the tail of Boston College. Every time they actually boxed up the run, Castellanos would open up the passing game and score. I'm not sure if Castellanos is pretending to be hurt in order to throw off the defense, but it appears to be a working strategy. While they are 1 game away from a bowl game, the next 3 on their schedule are not going to be easy. I'd say impossible, but I said the same thing about Louisville 2 weeks ago, so my track record checks out. There are just certain teams in college football that nobody will ever get a read on. 1 week they're the worst team in the conference, and then the next they're scoring with minimal effort on a conference opponent. Such is the case with the folks from the country roads. Many of these anomalies can be figured out with the rise of Nico Marchiol. Ever since he seized the starting position as the Mountaineers quarterback, this team has looked like a mirror image of themselves. He doesn't go out and put up amazing stats, but he doesn't go out and piss all over himself either. Cincinnati with Brandon Sorsby was able to make some noise with the passing game, doubling the Mountaineers' stats, but not being able to hold onto the football did them more harm than good, especially when you're throwing pick sixes in the process. West Virginia made their own mistakes too, but Cincinnati was not able to capitalize nearly as much as the Couchburners did. West Virginia telling Jordan Leslie to piss off might have been the right move after all. Who am I kidding? It absolutely was the right move. While the Mountaineers nearly sold hard in the end, the outcome was always the same. Neil Brown loses just enough to keep his fan base wanting to fire him, but not the administration. Scott Satterfield is getting heat as the Bearcats once again failed to produce a satisfactory level offense. Both of these fan bases could share a word from the Mountaineer fan base: trust the climb. Right? Lane Kiffin's back is against the wall. With the fake injury gimmick no longer a back-out option, he would have to actually coach a great game in order to make the playoffs. With Jackson Dart going out following a turnover leading to Georgia's score, fears began to stack about Ole Miss getting beat badly in this one. However, Georgia's been having their significant troubles behind Carson Beck, as the gap Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers left behind is very, very clear. Not only do Georgia fans want Beck out of the game, they want him out of the program entirely. They think less of him than Jake Fromm. The entire fan base is crashing out every time he steps back to pass. For good reason, too. He can't. He literally can't pass. The Mike Bobo offense has resorted to nothing but checkdowns and inside runs. Whatever ferocity the Dogs showed in Austin, Texas, stayed in Austin, Texas. This problem became an epidemic once Dart returned to the field. Georgia couldn't score. While Ole Miss couldn't do much better, their defense showed up in a major way. 5 sacks and 4 forced fumbles has put Georgia's offensive line on complete fraud watch. The return of the Squirrel was a greater offensive performance than anything the Dogs put onto the field. As such, the Rebels keep their playoff hopes alive and potentially knock Georgia out of it. The fans are so drunk already they don't even realize the game isn't over before rushing the field. I guess Georgia is now 48-1 against non-Alabama teams in the last 4 seasons. The only way the Bulldogs can keep their own hopes alive is by beating Tennessee the next week. Look at what you've done to me. You guys have given me hope! There's a significant possibility we as college football fans will see a 0-0 score in the following week. Avert your eyes at all costs. How would you react if I told you in the offseason that Michigan would be an underdog to Indiana once the two teams met? You would have told me to delete my channel. Some of you are probably still saying that, but the point remains clear. Michigan quarterback stepping back to pass continues to be the greatest comedy show everyone has ever seen. Each and every week they find more creative and comical ways to make themselves look like last year's championship was a cheap shot. Indiana is under the control of Curtis Pork, and while he wasn't able to grab a rhythm in the first half, he chose the right opponent for this performance. Michigan's defense is capable of keeping them in most of these games, but Michigan's quarterback depth chart is literally just a tax form. Davis Warren was chosen as the de facto quarterback for this game, and as every other Michigan game has shown, there is nothing there in terms of success. The lack of a run game with both Mullins and Donovan Edwards being shut down left Michigan on their knees praying for a defensive touchdown that would never come. Dominic Savada contributed more to the offense than anyone on that roster. Indiana's offense was beginning to go on autopilot in the fourth quarter though, so another potential upset was in the making. Don't tell me this fairy tale story is going to lose to a team with 10 players on the field at a time. Sharon Moore, we need your help. Sell the game away.
4. Warren throws complete. O'Leary doesn't get there.
You see that? Michigan had all 3 timeouts. Sharon Moore was planning on using them later, for when he's in the athletic director's office. Turn that championship circle to failure square. Whatever you call this on the field is the furthest thing away from a championship I've ever seen. JJ McCarthy is getting the "we miss you" card as we speak. Indiana has once again made history as this is Indiana's one and only 10-win season in program history. And the job is far from over. Rest up well, Kurt Kignetti. You've got an additional week to prepare for the nut jobs up in Ohio. Though you've already clinched Coach of the Year, this would just be a victory lap. Either the Big 12 is a lot closer than we thought, or the Cyclone has hit inland. Because whatever this was supposed to be was the furthest thing away from a championship contender. This squad must have gotten hit with the anti-talent ray over the bye week. Everything since has been an outright disaster. While Indiana managed to clinch their first 10-win season in program history, Iowa State took like a lawn chair after their birthday and folded. While Rocco Beck wasn't bad by any means, it's another episode of the defense not existing in this dimensional plane. Kansas has been riding the Michigan bus of offense and wound up putting 500 yards on the Tropical Storm defense. Kansas punched them in the mouth and dominated most of the game with the play calling being, "F*** it, Quentin Skinner is down there somewhere." At this point, the Tropical Storm has been downgraded to an inch of rain. Despite all of that though, Iowa State was down by 10 with 6 minutes left in the game. With the ball, you can believe Rocco Purdy is going to chuck some dots.
And it's intercepted. Mello Dotson with the pick. And he takes it all the way back
to the other team. Might be time to check your phone, Iowa State. Liberty's calling you again. With this now being the Cyclones' second loss of the season, any slim chance of the playoffs is blown away. There's no room for that type of defense among the top 12. Kansas gets another win in the season that was thought to be completely over for them. While it still won't be a great year, Lance Leipold claims himself another year with a win like this one. He also guaranteed that BYU will be the only rep from the Big 12 to make the playoffs. I imagine they did their job with minimal effort this week. Right? Well, to the credit of the Hokies, they didn't sell this week. Like the Lane Stadium Wi-Fi, there was no service at all from this team. Virginia Tech managed to get their two best players back on the field just to score a total of 14 points. They played the quarterback hokey pokey between Schlee and Drones, and neither of them could get past the Clemson defense. The Turkeys had a run game that had the potential to go through the defensive line, as Louisville did the week before, if they used it. When it came to their own offensive woes, Clemson was still missing an actual offense. The coaches chose to spend a half of the football game doing absolutely nothing. Once the second half came along though, that's when they put on the jerseys. The only points scored in the first half were off a blocked field goal for a touchdown. The Turkey defense would begin to crumble in the second half, and that would be when Cade Klubnik would strike. Tech's defense decided it was their turn to tap out, while their offense attempted to get the game in their favor. But with Clemson turning on the offensive aggressiveness, the Hokies would fall victim to the high-end talent. A turnover in the fourth quarter by Schlee would ensure that Clemsoning would not be happening today. The Turkeys got a vasectomy, and this time they actually earned their loss. Sandman did not enter, but rather left. Virginia Tech tried to be an air raid offense for this game and found out real quick that they don't have the personnel to do any of that. Take the bye week and raid a new playbook. Clemson's reputation on the national scale is heavily tainted following the Louisville loss, but they can salvage the remnant of their season through the last 3 games. Pitt awaits, which would be a ranked win for the Taters, as long as they took care of business. What's with the long pause? This game is proof that politics and sports are two completely different things. While North Carolina was red in the election, they went completely blue for this matchup. It's also proof that you can be acceptably good in both football and basketball. NC State should have known they were in for immediate trouble when Duke went up 5-0 to start the game. Unfortunately, the Whack Pack doesn't get to play California teams 12 times a season. This walking mediocrity went straight back to disappearing on offense for entire quarters. Every time they get into the red zone, they put on reverse roller skates and knock themselves away from a touchdown. Malik Murphy versus CJ Bailey is the battle between having receivers who catch and those who don't. Justin Jolie was the MVP for the mid-pack, but only because he was the only guy on the team who didn't stick his hands in Vaseline for this game. They've got more pop songs playing in the stadium than they do pop-offs by the offense. By now, NC State fans have gotten used to this feeling. Young Whack Pack fans are living through an entire generation of Dave Doran mid-ball. Year 12 and things have never changed. You can't win a few games without blowing a few as well. It's another prime example of football purgatory. Doran ain't going anywhere. He'll sooner die on that sideline than he will retire. Hold that Final Four appearance with pride. Manny Diaz secures another road win in what's going to be another successful season for the Blue Devils. First time since the 80s they beat the Wolfpack in consecutive seasons. Thus the result of actually putting an effort to build a football program. Many ACC teams could learn a thing or two from that. Iowa State's implosion has brought upon a major opportunity for the Buffs, getting into the Big 12 championship. Texas Tech provided them with one favor already, and as the weeks progress, the odds stacked more and more in Colorado's favor. While Baron Morton took the Red Raiders to a 13-0 lead, the Buffs quickly closed the gap and took the lead. It was hard to see the drives though because flags and tortillas were flying everywhere. The fans were throwing them like frisbees. Colorado's offense is built off the premise that an offensive line is an option. Such a scenario works when Shedeur Sanders can just run around the entire time. Travis Hunter once again had a great day. In competing with Genty Ball for the Heisman Trophy, he proved why he's one of the greatest players on the field. While Colorado is shredding this defense, someone is currently getting a Zach Kitley ass tattoo just to watch him piss himself the week afterwards. Might as well be a flag tattooed there because Ref Ball is smacking some red into the cheeks of the Red Raider faithful. At least Taj Brooks has solidified himself as one of the top running backs in school history. Back to the Buffs though, I must admit, I'm impressed. Behind all that tough talk and bravado is a real football team. A great offense and an existing defense to work with it. Dion and company have a staff and a team capable of making noise in the postseason. They went out, and they'll have a chance to make the playoffs. The Dion Glazers will be working their gag reflex over November. Wait a minute, did Travis Hunter just stick a tortilla in his pants? It's a state of fact that this season has been a roller coaster for both of these teams. Vanderbilt goes out and loses to Georgia State while also pulling off one of the biggest wins in program history. South Carolina lands a significant win over the Aggie Colt while trying to remove the phantom pains of Ref Ball. They proved further today that Cocktober is just a placeholder for the real deal, Cockvember. The Norris Sellers and Rocket Sanders shredded Vanderbilt's secondary, partly due to the fact that the defense believed tackling was optional. Diego Pavia shared no such success. Dylan Stewart got a $500,000 raise, so you best guarantee the Beamer Ball defense would be on lockdown. Like an automatic rifle, the Cox were relentless and thorough with their offense. Every time Vandy thought they had them stopped, Sellers would put his big rooster balls on their face and drag them for another big gain over the middle. The Gamecocks' record does them no justice. They are a really good team with a strong roster and a bowl-eligible one at that. Vandy's efforts were great, but Cogvember must live on. Congratulations on Sweet 16 though, you can now drive. Thank the Lord this isn't a Georgia streak. Both teams will still have plenty of chances to play spoiler for the remaining opponents this season, as they are plenty capable enough to do it. Clemson fans are suffering major heartburn knowing a sandstorm is coming for Death Valley. Protect that rock at all costs. In an effort to get the team to show up for once, Maryland is whipping out the new uniforms on their way to face off against the top team in the land. Maryland was... Man, could y'all let me speak?
Shut the fuck up!
Anyway, Oregon was right back to starting out slow in all of their games. Dylan Gabriel was struggling to find his receivers and the defense was letting Billy Edwards throw all over them. It took Maryland all of 15 minutes to realize what month it was and that it was illegal for them to be competent.
Edwards. Hit. Ball is out. Oregon's got it. They're going the other way. Brandon Johnson to the house.
There we go. Welcome back, Maryland. While Oregon struggled to get much going through the game, they were literally just too stubborn to get into a losing position. This was definitely one of the Ducks' much more lackluster performances, as the offense was like spoiled milk, and the special teams was that of dark chocolate. Not good. At all. Through the efforts of Billy Edwards, though, Maryland kept giving them drives in prime position to score, and thus the high-end talent would win in the end. You know this game is a complete shit show and both sides are blaming the Zebras for it. Glad all these keyboard warriors aren't at the game, otherwise they'd probably try throwing bottles like all the other beta males. Speaking of beta, the Terps fall to 4-5 ahead of their final 2 games. You can leave in the comments your choice of the sound effect I'll use to eliminate you. The Rubber Duckies continue to genocide route through the entirety of the Big Ten. Indiana's match against Ohio State in 2 weeks will likely determine who your opponent in December will be. Before that though, you've got 2 more regular season games to get through to potentially clinch the 1 seed. Mario Cristobal isn't your coach, so I don't believe an implosion is coming. It's nice we live in an era of Tennessee football where at least 20 to 30 minutes of the 60-minute game are enjoyable to watch. Considering the Vols used to be where the Cowbell College is now, you take the wins where you get them. Nico, I may be out for Georgia, is slowly becoming more refined as the season prevails. The receivers are catching footballs, and the offensive line is only holding once per drive. With James Franklin's long-lost son calling plays though, the flaws in the offense are always weeded out. The absolute epitome of said play calling was shown on Tennessee's 3rd drive, where they started at the 7-yard line. Run it up the middle, run it up the middle, run it up the middle, and run it up the middle. Alright, I've seen enough. Give this man an extension! Greatest coordinator of the year! Despite the usual offensive blemishes, Mississippi State is 2-7 for a reason. While they ran the ball well, they couldn't pass the ball on Tennessee's lockdown secondary. Just a little less than what Nico was doing. Speaking of which, Nico went out of the game in the second half due to a big hit he took earlier. While Vol fans are holding their breath through the rest of the game, Josh Heupel later confirmed that he rested him as a precautionary measure rather than an actual injury. Gaston Moore would come in for cleanup duty and a flex on Mississippi State. You can't score, so we won't either. Max Gilbert would take care of the rest of the scoring, as he went from being outclassed by Sarah Fuller to nailing 50-yarders like it was a typical Tuesday night. Thus, Tennessee's high-end talent and home field carries the Vols to what is now 8-1 and tied for first in the SEC. What a world we're living in! Everything falls in the balance of next week, as the Vols venture straight into the depths of hell itself to take on Satan. Getting eliminated from the playoffs by my arch rival might be a convincing argument that the football gods just have it out for me. I shouldn't be saying that. Look at Mississippi State. That's what football hell truly looks like. Put all those cowbells up for a yard sale and get some NIL money. Though both of these squads have suffered a few losses, they are both red hot as of currently and are willing to make a statement tonight. Arizona State would be hit with a major loss as the Bug managed to grab Cam Skibbity of all players. Kyson Brown would have to fill the gap he left. RJ Harvey and the Riskler for UCF look to fix the issues of their offense in the past, and so far they appear to be doing so. While they would score first, it was followed by a scoop and score which tied the game. The Riskler and Sam Leavitt would trade blows for the first half, but Christian Peterson decided to play a real funny game of what the fuck am I doing? Alright Gus, you're pinned back at your own one with minimal time left. Just take a knee and take it to the half.
Throwing it. And picked off! Welch, touchdown! Disaster for UCF!
Intellect. You really look at these coaching jobs and you think to yourself why UCF isn't one of the top teams in the Big 12. Despite this failure wouldn't deter RJ Harvey, who would keep the Knights in the game, at least until Sam Leavitt gave the Sun Devils a lead back. This would be the dagger or pitchfork that would ultimately end the efforts of Central Florida. Over a decade of football and the Gus bus is still consistently getting flat tires. Any more of these debacles and the bus might end up at a Spirit Halloween. In fact, the Knights now have to win out in order to keep their bowl streak alive. Don't worry guys, Gus is clutch in these big moments. That's why he's won 1 in the last 7. Blah blah blah, the ball, the baskets, blah blah. The Sun Devils have a very sparse chance of getting into the Big 12 title. They'll just have to rely on more chaos than what we've already seen. Either that or they'll have to become Colorado haters. They also have to win out. Question for you though, do you doubt Cam Skibbity? Do any of you remember how happy Oklahoma State fans were that Oklahoma and Texas left for the SEC? They said to themselves, now's our chance to take over the Big 12. The only thing they've taken over is the sales on Tums. Unless you're a Cowboy booster, then you're saving that for the buyout. If Gundy is going to complain about NIL, the best thing to do is to show him what money can really do. Whatever remnant there was left of this team was pissed on, spit on, and thrown to the wood chipper. Josh Hoover deep-fried the Cowboys secondary, and TCU was actually able to consistently run the ball. Things got so bad defensively that TCU sent out the myth himself, Ken Seals, to throw on you. Alan Bowman is as old as Cam Rising, and he plays like 20 years older than that. Mike Gundy is just getting blatantly outcoached every time he steps onto the field. To go from making the Big 12 championship to being 0-7 in the same conference is quite the achievement. The only reason the Cowboys are even able to score is because of Ollie Gordon just trying anything to make something happen. By the point he did though, TCU was running circles around them enough to where it didn't matter. It's more enjoyable stepping on Legos than it is trying to watch this team coach their offense. At least their name is consistent. The Cowboys are just like their NFL counterparts. Screaming, crying, throwing up, it's all the same. The Hypnotoads, on the other hand, pick up a much-needed Big 12 win at home, which takes Sonny Dykes and co. back to bowl eligibility.
Alright!
Even if it's the Little Debbie Bowl, just be happy you're going back. Oklahoma State, you know what I have to do, but with the bravado your fan base carried over the offseason, it was only a matter of time until karma struck. Now's as good of a time as any to reconsider your options and who's coaching this team. Ollie Gordon deserves better than this. Each and every week that progresses, the trail of tears becomes wider and more convoluted. The program and a Red Solo Cup will not be released from their anguish for another 3 weeks. So just go ahead and bend over and let it happen. Considering the hype that revolved around this matchup, many are extremely disappointed. There's tanking, there's collapsing, and then there's Florida State football. The script for them is practically recycled each and every week. They have no quarterback, no run game, no defense, no coaching staff with a head out of their sphincters, and no patience left from the fan base to deal with it. Oh, and no playoff appearance this season. Thought I needed to make that clear this time. Well, it took a minute to get cooking. Once they did, the Irish took the entire program to the hydraulic press. It was disintegration. While Riley Leonard wasn't explosive, when the other team is exploding in their own pants, there really isn't any need to be. Whatever war chant Florida State did over the offseason, all they've done is declare war on their own team. What a disaster. Try not to ride the struggle bus next week, Irish. You're still having to make up for the Northern Illinois loss. Though the season has long been over, Florida State fans can take solace in the fact that they only have to suffer a few more times. They'll get a cupcake next week, which definitely helps. It'll give them all the time they need to figure out a new playbook to use as they finally started to chop heads. If it were me, I'd say throw an eviction notice on everything in that house. But let's be real, they'd probably just try and sue the HOA. This is it. Everything's coming together for LSU. Off a bye week, they've been able to correct their mistakes of the Texas A&M loss. College game day will be in attendance, spearheaded by the hottest person on campus, and Livy Dunn. On top of all of that, Alabama is coming to Death Valley in the moonlight filled with 5- and 4-star recruits. Nothing can go wrong.
Oh no, it all went wrong!
Everything I just said is canceled out by the fact that your coach is Brian Kelly. His legacy is built off the name Big Game Brian, but we know him here as Burger King. Guess what? He folded again. Turns out all you need to kill a tiger is to spam the quarterback draw all game long. Every time Jalen Milroe took off, everyone on LSU's defense forgot how to tackle, or run, or exist for any particular circumstance. You want to know what BK does worse than dual threat quarterback defense?
Williams is the back, and Nussmeier across the middle, throw an interception!
His goal line offense. To be fair, this was certainly not Nussmeier's greatest game, but throwing out a quarterback spy every once in a while might turn things in your favor. But of course that's not happening. Look at BK. He's thinking about the next flavor of ice cream he's gonna get. On the rare case where LSU finally gets a stop, it's taken back by penalties. How can they embarrass themselves further? I'm glad you asked. LSU joins Clemson and Ohio State in the butthurt fans throwing shit on the field because of a call clan. They're 0 for 3 since the Texas game. Perpetual clown fan base. You earned this after trotting out that random tiger on the field. You ought to be lucky that it's in a cage. If it ran away too, ain't nothing in Louisiana catching it. As quickly as they faded, Alabama's playoff chances have quickly returned as Reese Davis and company can now talk about Alabama's high-quality resume again. LSU is reduced to nothing but Cajun sparkle and remnants of 2019. Also, in case you need a reminder, Ryan Williams is only 17, and BK is only 117. Behold, football sedation. Nothing is more worthy of bedtime than watching two offenses slap themselves in the face for 4 quarters. With Brady Cook still nursing an injury, Drew Pine would come out against whatever poor soul Oklahoma chooses this time. The victim this time would be the return of Jackson Arnold, and in record time, he fumbles the ball. Twice. What followed afterwards was proof that they were in for sicko mode. Mizzou couldn't go down the field at all, and Oklahoma couldn't go down the field while keeping control of the football. Scoring drives would be reserved for the field goal kickers. If you think about it, this should have been the expectation. The guy that scored the first touchdown was Oklahoma transfer Theo Weiss. Talk about a stab in the back. Nonetheless, Jackson Arnold would do the unthinkable with minimal time left on the clock. Score. What happened next was what they call Sooner magic.
Again, it's a decoy ball, came out, it's scooped up by Oklahoma! Billy Bowman's gonna take it to the house, and the Sooners bounce back in front!
Did you enjoy watching that? Good. It's gone. Missouri instantly went down the field and scored off a catch by, you guessed it, Theo Weiss. Great. It's always the most boring games that finish out so strongly. I guess we're going to overtime. Yeah, said Sooner magic has nothing on whatever dark arts are going on in Como. The sooner the season ends, the Sooners thrive. That boomer wagon is doing the death wobble at this point. Brent Venables is in a bucket load of shit now, as he has to win one of the 2 remaining games on the schedule in order to make a bowl. You think they're holding off Alabama? Please, make that bet. Missouri somehow survives another week, but at this point the schedule is just too soft in order to make a dent in the playoffs. No amount of chaos can help you out with that. Better luck next year, Eli Drinkwitz! Wait a minute, this is what they brought the white out for? Seems a little late to me. Nonetheless, it hardly matters. Michael Penix isn't walking through that door anytime soon, and even if he was, he wouldn't have more than a nanosecond to throw the ball. The Huskies were doomed from the start. On the off chance the O-line actually does give him time to throw, he'd complete it to the other team. Penn State did what they usually do against anyone not named Ohio State, and high-end talented the fuck out of Washington. Though Washington's efforts were in vain, the second half would introduce a brand new man behind the pocket for the Purple Rain. Desmond Williams Jr. would bring a weapon to him that the Huskies were lacking, the ability to run. Since they weren't going to use their actual running backs, the next best idea for Jedd Fisch was to have his quarterback do all the running. While this could potentially set up something for the future, they never stood a chance here. The Huskies will have their chance to go bowling next week as UCLA awaits them. They will have a tough choice at quarterback ahead though. Penn State will continue to cruise through whatever is left for the season, as they are Missouri with one extra win. They need Ohio State to lose to give them a better shot of the playoffs. They might be doing you a favor though. James Franklin against good defenses is a match made in hell. The Panthers are already done. Whatever you want to say about Penn State's resume applies to Pitt, plus factoring in the Tank Conference. With no wins to prop them up, they desperately need to come up clutch at home against the Pirates. Unfortunately for them, their team didn't get the memo. In fact, neither team did. Both Anthony Calandria and Eli Holstein were slinging footballs just in hope that somebody would catch it. More often than not though, they'd get their wish in the form of the other team. Pitt's offense being unable to move put them into desperation mode, especially when the stupid-ass bug got involved. Holstein is down once again. Kanata Mumpfield joins him. Yarnell would have to lead the way the rest of the game, but boneheaded turnovers guarantee that this was easier said than done. Pitt would be fighting another adversary as well, ACC ref ball. The highlight of this would be shown here. Pitt gets a stop on 4th and 1, but since the Zebras were not set, they get an extra down. Only the ACC refs could bring back 5th down. What an assload of ass. If this shit happened to Alabama, there would be riots on ESPN. Because of this and an interception to seal it, Virginia would hand Pitt their second loss of the season, all but disintegrating playoff hopes. While it was a great win for Tony Elliott, this one is going to be talked about for a long time. It does save us from at least one first-round blowout though. The Holy War After Dark. BYU is the final remnant of the Big 12 holding on to their own destiny. Heading straight into the most packed crowd in Utah history, which isn't even really packed by stadium standards, they are ready for blood all the same. This is their season. Playing spoiler for their big rival is the moment they've been waiting for. This was made apparent by the fact that BYU struggled to get any offensive momentum. Jake Retzlaff will likely sleep through the week seeing nothing but Utah's defensive line in his nightmares. No matter how many guys they put up to guard him, it never made a difference. Utah pulled out all their bags of tricks in this game, the biggest one being the debut of Brandon Rhodes as the starter for the Utes. Utah is pulling out quarterbacks from their depth chart like Tic Tacs. They even had Damiel Alford throw for an interception. Keelan Marion would be the best guy for the offense without actually being on the offense as he scored on a kick return touchdown. Utah would not falter, however. Michael Bernard helped Utah to get to a 21-10 lead. However, they decided that this was enough scoring for the night, letting the defense do all the work through the rest of the night. They'd stop BYU again and again and again and again and again, waiting for something from the offense, but help never came. They just punted every single time. Though the Cougars would score again late, they'd have only one more chance to score with less than 2 minutes left to go. 3-0 later, and it's 4th and 10. BYU's undefeated season hangs in the balance of this.
Retzlaff goes down! Reed got to him! There is a flag! Whoa!
All hail ref ball! Now that they've been given new life, you already know what's coming next. Don't even start with the rig bullshit, maybe next time try scoring a point in the second half. Your failure to do anything in an entire half of football has given you this ending. Observe.
Snap, hold, kick, on the way, kick is good!
Well, I'm sure this result won't end in someone crying about it. Wait a second, I was talking about the fans, not the administration. Did he even watch the game? No amount of crying about ref ball will give you a first down. Utah and Kyle Whittingham are in free fall mode. They haven't won a game since September. Will they ever win another? That's yet to be determined. BYU collects their 9th win in a row, but their struggle gives all the more excuse for the playoff committee to nerf you all and buff the SEC. Alright, another week has gone by. Time to check out the conference standings. Little has changed with the Big Ten, as Oregon still maintains control. Indiana and Ohio State will still play in 2 weeks to determine who plays in Indianapolis. Penn State is floating in the bubble, and everyone else is in the pits of hell. The SEC has been flipped on its head with the Georgia loss. They'll have a chance to regain control next week as Tennessee comes to town. If that happens, the playoff committee will consider 5 SEC teams. Dear Lord, imagine. Ole Miss has gotten themselves back into the conversation as Texas, Alabama, and A&M also float around the bubble. It's BYU and BYU only in the Big 12. It's a dogfight for the honors of playing them in December. It could be anyone at this point. Who the hell knows? Tank Conference belongs to SMU until further notice, as they are the only one left with no losses in said conference. Miami still controls their own destiny, as they had the win over Louisville. Clemson doesn't. Pitt is dead, and so is the same for everyone else. Genty Ball still leads the group of 5, but Army is waiting very patiently for Boise to drop a game. It's anyone's guess if there's another team in that batch who can take the spot at this point. Finally, to wrap out our rankings, the top ranking for good boys. That would go to Mr. Ben Herbstreit. The only thing that sucks about dogs is that they leave this world far too soon. May the Lord welcome you in his kingdom with open arms. That's it for this week. As per the norm, here's my top 25. Before you yell and scream about Missouri, know that I am trying my best with the teams and their records at hand. Take all complaints to the Patreon page. Speaking of which, thank you for joining the Patreon. If your name is here, you got to see this video early. Good for you. Your support is greatly appreciated. As always, I'll see you guys next week for more November chaos. Power to Tardaria!